WPLG 715, Fireman Kenny's on the air, helping you to stay safe in a world where danger never takes a vacation. On this episode of the Fireman Kenny Show podcast, we interview City of Cudahy Mayor Ken Jankowski about the challenges of going from running a firehouse to running a small city. Welcome back to another installment of the Fireman Kenny Show podcast. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Fireman Kenny Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or whatever platform you're listening to the show. Ken Jankowski had over 30 years of fire experience when he became an alderman in the City of Cudahy. After retiring as a captain with the North Shore Fire Department, he was elected to the position of mayor. On this episode, we talk with Mayor Jankowski about the challenges of going from running a fire station to running a small city. Before we begin the podcast, we would like to mention our sponsors. For over a century, the National Fire Sprinkler Association has been advocating for a stronger industry and a safer world by promoting fire sprinklers in model codes and legislation. Their mission is simple: to protect lives and property from fire through the widespread acceptance of the fire sprinkler concept. Be sure to follow the National Fire Sprinkler Association on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. You can visit the National Fire Sprinkler Association website, www.nfsa.org. We would also like to thank our friends at Fire Suppression Solutions, distributor of fire suppression products for the fire service and for home use. You can follow Fire Suppression Solutions on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Now a word from Fire Suppression Solutions.
Fire can strike without warning, leaving you with precious little time to react. And if you are not prepared, the damage can be devastating to life and property. In the blink of an eye, your home or business could be on fire, with flames doubling in size every 30 seconds, leaving you helpless and unable to respond. Don't let this nightmare become a reality. That starts with being prepared. Our fire suppression products are designed to equip you with an effective response to any fire emergency, all while limiting additional damage, making you the true first responder, giving you the peace of mind that you have what you need to keep your loved ones and property safe until more help comes. Do you have a plan to respond to a fire emergency at your home or business? Protect your family, pets, and property with the tools from Fire Suppression Solutions. Contact us today and finish putting your plan into effect before it's too late.
For more information on Fire Suppression Solutions products, you can visit firess.us. Welcome back to another installment of the Fireman Kenny Show podcast. With us today is the man, the myth, the legend, Cudahy Mayor Ken Jankowski. Ken, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Ken. I appreciate you taking time out to sit down with me and talk over how things are going from the fire service to running a city.
So as most of my listeners are aware, Ken is a friend of the show. So Ken, when we first started doing this podcast on Spotify, while the WIBD radio show was still going, Ken, you were like one of the first guests when we talked about fire service recruitment and retention. That particular episode, I think, seems to be aging fairly well. So why don't you talk about your fire service career? Because you and I have known each other almost our entire fire service careers. So why don't you talk about your fire service career for all of our listeners?
Oh, you're talking about a long time. Holy cow. Time sure did fly by. I mean, I started in 1992 with the city of Franklin, was in EMT school before that, which is where you and I met. That was in 91, I believe, right? We both got our EMT licenses. We started really off with Bell Ambulance. And then
where you were often imitated but never duplicated.
That's right. The infamous number 870, as they say. Yeah, I got picked up by Franklin as a POC, worked on and off shift with the full-time guys, going to school, those types of things. I eventually landed another part-time gig with Germantown Fire, where I got to meet a lot of people, made a lot of contacts. Ultimately, in 1996, I was picked up by Brookfield full-time, where I stayed until 2001, where I jumped ship to the North Shore for a variety of reasons, and where I finished out as a captain after 32 years of being in the fire service. I retired in May of 2024, so it was a good run. It was time. time for me to go. A lot of my friends, and you followed shortly thereafter, we're all retired. It's time to pass on the torch.
So one of the things that we had talked about was your time as captain. So a number of our listeners may not know that the captain actually runs the firehouse. And even though there are 3 shifts, 2 of the shift's officers are lieutenants and 1 of the shift officers is a captain. The captain basically runs the firehouse, which means you had to deal with not only any disciplinary issues of the 3 shifts, but you also had to deal with the budget for the station. Why don't you talk about your budgeting process and how you ran the station?
That was a learning curve for me as well. It's more simplistic than how you make it sound. Basically, each station was allotted X number of dollars for supplies, which was run through a battalion chief of supply, but we had to monitor that closely when it came to use of toiletries and station cleaning supplies, etc. When it came to dealing with personnel, this was new to the North Shore, having the captains run the house. I mean, ideally, really any disciplinary actions that would exceed minor infractions obviously had to go higher up, depending what the infraction was. But I always had a policy of let's keep it in-house, let's do it in-house. You know, if there's an issue with you, we'll deal with you now. We're not going to wait till the end of the year and put it over an evaluation per se. I really had a great crews. I had very little difficulty with them in any respect. A lot of younger guys, a mix of some of the old. It worked out really well. So it was really an easy transition for me. And running those crews, initially I thought would be more difficult, but it wasn't. So I was fortunate to have good guys at my station.
So now you go from running a fire station on a microeconomic level to running a small suburban Milwaukee area city on a macroeconomic level. So let's talk about how the transition from captain to mayor has made you more aware of what's going on in the world and in your own hometown.
You know as well as I do, when you are immersed in the fire service like we were for as long as we were, we really kind of live in our own little bubble. We think that anything outside the fire service is not as important as the fire service. And when you get out of that and kind of look on the other side, you're like, oh, there's a whole world out here of stuff going on. I'm like, yeah, maybe some of the things we complain about really are small-time stuff. Transitioning from a captain to being the mayor of a city, huge learning curve, huge. I didn't know a lot. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't understand some things. And not to mention the fact being that firemen are type A personalities. City government doesn't work like that. We were used to things being done quickly. I wanted answers and I wanted them yesterday. And trying to get things established and going takes a little longer because everything is tied to a dollar. Everything's tied to a dollar, tied to some kind of fund, some kind of budgetary issue. And if you do A, maybe you can't do B. If you do B, maybe you can't do C. It was a huge learning curve for me. My staff at City Hall wasn't used to a guy like me. I did make some rash changes, immediate changes that they had to adapt to because I wasn't going to let that carry on for months on end. So they were learning me and I was learning them, and I was learning how the transition from being a fireman to a mayor really, like I said, huge learning curve. I understand now why a lot of smaller cities have budget issues, things don't get done in a timely fashion, those types of things, because every 3 years you could have a brand new person as your mayor, as a council person, alderperson, what have you, and they might have no background, no idea of how city government works, what's all entailed. And so every 3 years you could be hitting the reset button, and the staff spends considerable time educating those people on how things actually work. So it's no wonder things don't get done like they should. I, being in the fire service, had some background in government, in city government, because especially at my level, I was privy to things and understood how things worked. But again, huge learning curve. So yeah, it's a lot. Being the mayor of Cudahy, they said it was a part-time job. Somebody lied to me because that's not the case. It can't be a part-time job, even though it is, and they don't pay us enough. The money does not mean anything. I could make more money working at McDonald's. You have to be engaged every day We have a full-time city administrator that runs the day-to-day operations, thank God, because there are still things that I'm learning about that I really don't have a handle on, that I'm getting educated on. And thank God, because no wonder previous mayors struggled, because it's too much, especially if you're not retired or if you had another full-time job and then being a mayor. There's no way. You'd be working 80 hours a week and then some, and still not get anything accomplished, and trying to oversee all that. We talked in the fire service. We've been taught our entire careers the span of control is 5, one person to manage five people. City government, the way the city of Cudahy was run, you had one mayor overseeing 4 different departments plus all the staff personnel. It was in excess of almost 15 people. There's no way you can keep a handle on all of that. So thank God we hired a city administrator a few years ago. The individual we have now is fairly new. He's only been here about 15 months. Good guy, really helped out me a lot. He's learning from me as well on some things when it comes to fire and police and public safety. And so we're working really well together, and we're trying to move the city forward. And again, like any city, there's budget shortfalls that are things that were kicked down the road, and deferred maintenance and wages and benefits that have not been kept up, and now we're forced to do things we don't want to do.
So one of the other things that helped you prepare, even though it was only a very short time, during your time while you were working for the North Shore Fire Department, you had 1 3-year term as alderman, which kind of helped you get set up to become the mayor, although you might even agree that 3 years may not have been enough, but something had to be done because the mayor was stepping down. So why don't you talk about your time as alderman and everything that taught you and it prepared you for the job as mayor?
Yeah, so back in 2022, I was asked to run for alderman for the 4th District, and I really knew nothing about what that would all entail. So I decided to run. I won, which was surprising because I never thought I would actually get it. Because you just never know. When you are put in that position, again, you don't really know how the inner workings of the city government actually work. Like, I'll be honest with you, like when we were going through budget stuff, I would look at the other alders on the council, and we all had this deer in the headlight look. When you're talking about expenditures and money coming in and how it can be allocated, but there's rules tied because you can't move money from one budget to another, fund balance, tax levy issues. It's a lot to absorb, and I don't know of anybody other than if you went to school to be a finance director, certified public accountant, or some kind of other financial background, that anybody would have a handle on how all that works. It's too much. A lot of times I felt kind of dumb because I was like, I'm not really sure what we're talking about here, and I would have to ask those questions, which is intimidating because the public is there, and you don't want to come off like an idiot. So a lot of times I would ask those questions either before or after the meeting and say, what does this really mean? So that helped a lot, especially when it comes to tax levy stuff. And tax levy, as we all know, that's what the state of Wisconsin put on all municipalities back in 2008, where we can only raise taxes a small amount. This last year, we were only allowed to raise taxes $23,000, which when you break it down to per household, we have about 6,000 homes here in the city of Cudahy. I was only allowed to raise taxes $3.53. What am I going to do with that? I've got wages and benefits to pay for. I've got police and fire that are severely underpaid. I've got DPW that are underpaid. Staff is underpaid. So this kind of goes back to, these shortfalls because previous administrations, not to their detriment, but they didn't want to raise taxes or put fees on the people because they know it would not be popular. But unfortunately, someone's got to be the adult in the room now and make the hard choices, and it's time for the city of Cudahy to grow up. We are not Mayberry. Barney Fife doesn't work here. Floyd the Barber's not doing the budget on Saturdays in between haircuts. This is a fully functioning professional city, and it's time that we start acting like it. And unfortunately, until our legislators release the shared revenue to a tune of $4.9 billion we're sitting on, we're forced to do things. We have to come up with fees that go on your water bill. We have to do things like wheel tax, which is not popular. I don't like it. I don't like paying more. Nobody does. But what are we going to do? We have to function. I'm down 7 cops. I'm down 4 DPW. I'm going to lose a couple firemen here pretty shortly to retirement. I've got staff positions I can't fill. My staff at City Hall, The gals that I got, they're doing 3-4 different jobs. I mean, they're just inundated. And they're not getting paid appropriately either. So why would they stay here? So it goes to retention. And if you have good people, you want to keep them, but you got to pay them, So these are the things we're tasked with, and we're at the end. So, I tell people that, a lot of city residents don't understand, because their taxes used to pay for a lot of things, right? Well, over time, so imagine the story of the tortoise and the hare, right? So the hare is your taxes that paid for everything, and the tortoise represented all the services, the wages and benefits, all the city services that the hare as taxes it was paying for. Well, the story of the tortoise and the hare, the tortoise eventually catches up and beats the hare, and that's where we're at. The current taxes that we have are not covering those services anymore. They're not covering the wages and benefits anymore, and so the tortoise has now surpassed the hare, and now we're upside down, which is forcing us to do things like forestry fees, street light maintenance fees, unfortunately the wheel tax, and even then we still cut services we didn't want to cut. I'm not filling positions I need filled just because of it. So we have another meeting coming up to do an amended budget, but we're going to need a supermajority to have that done. If it doesn't pass, we're pretty much screwed, which I'm hoping that the wheel tax passes again. And originally we were asking for $50 a couple months ago. We've kind of figured out that $25 would be just fine, and that's per car, not per wheel, which a lot of people were misunderstood about that. They thought it was per wheel, and it only is for cars and trucks. So it doesn't count motorcycles, doesn't count RVs, does not count trailers, and it's $25. So I mean, if you do the math, it's $2 a month, right? And not only does it cover that, but it also grabs a lot of the renters and all the businesses here in Cudahy that have their vehicles registered. So renters will now be paying their fair share to city services, which not that they weren't paying through their rents, but now that, this will grab all of them as well, along with the businesses, including vehicles at City Hall. That, we're talking about, the fire engines, we're talking about the squad cars, or the DPW trucks, everything that's registered here. So the city is going to be paying that as well, which is kind of an interesting concept. With that $25, we figure that's only going to net us about $350,000 annually, which again doesn't seem like a lot, but we can do a lot with that. We can catch up on wages and benefits. We can do fix a lot of the deferred maintenance on our buildings and facilities and roads and those types of things, which will go a long way. Because my short time of being a mayor, all I've heard about is the roads are terrible, and how come the lights don't work, and why is this all these inefficiencies. So I've been working diligently with the city administrator and some of the council to streamline a lot of things and do things that make sense. It seems like in smaller type cities, the government there's so many levels of government and levels of things that don't need to be there. We had a design review board, which was advisory only. So if you wanted to have a business and they didn't like your sign that you were going to have on your business, that was a roadblock for you. Well, who are we to say what kind of sign you have? It's your business. If maybe I don't like it, but if it's the sign you want and it doesn't work, that's on you. Mm-hmm. So those types of things that we've been streamlining and trying to push the city forward. And like I said, it's time for the city to grow up and get with the times and not have all these different levels of government to deal with. So.
Yeah, so Ken, you talked about the revenue stream, so taxes, fees, and then shared revenue from the state. Now let's talk about the expenses. And a lot of people may not actually know what all the expenses that go into government. So off of the 2025 budget for Cudahy that was published, you had public safety, which of course is police, fire, and the emergency medical services, or the EMS, general government, public works, health and human services, and leisure services. But let's start with one of these each at a time. Let's talk about public safety, which is the most expensive in any municipal budget. Again, 24/7 coverage from the police department, 24/7 coverage from the fire, 24/7 coverage from a paramedic ambulance service. Let's talk about the challenges of these expenses, and then we'll move on to the other expenses in government.
Yeah, so some of the challenges in it, it's a general thing. So it's police and fire especially. It's always wages and benefits and recruitment and retention. Like I said, the City of Cudahy police and fire departments are some of the lowest paid in the county, and we've lost guys to other agencies just because they can get paid more. And just to maintain all those things, and now that we have paramedic service and we're part of the shared service model, our paramedics spend a lot of time in Milwaukee, and those rigs are getting the snot kicked out of them, along with our guys. I mean, we have one station with a minimum staffing of 6, and they're running on average 8 to 13 calls a day. That's a lot for 6 guys to run. They still got to sleep. They still got to train. They got to do maintenance. All those things still have to go into their day. And we just, at that level, you can't maintain that over a long period of time. Because when you do that, injuries go up, your workman's comp goes up, guys are going to call in sick, so now you have an overtime issue, and this was on the police side as well. It's the same story. I'll even go as far as say a DPW as well. I'm down 4 DPW guys because they left here to go to other agencies because they got paid more money. And again, the last snowstorm we had, the big one we had a month ago, 2 months ago, when I normally had 6 to 8 plow trucks on the road, I only had 4. Our guys were on the road for in excess of 20 hours, which exceeded the DOT rules. They can only be on the road for 16, but the roads had to get plowed, and our guys are dedicated, and I commend them and thank them for doing that. Although we got a little slap on the wrist from DOT, but what are you going to do? And that's what citizens don't understand. They want all these services, and we want to provide them, but you got to find a way to pay for them because your taxes just don't cover it anymore. Wages and benefits go up. Overtime goes up. Expenditures for vehicles goes up. Fuel costs go up. It's always related to goods and services. You know, you want these things, but you got to find a way to pay for it. I hear all the time, but we need more cops to run traffic on Lake Drive or Layton Avenue. That's great. I'd love for them to run traffic, and we would probably make a killing in ticket revenue. I don't have enough cops to patrol those things. Anybody who lives in any small city, I don't care if it's Cudahy, I don't care if it's St. Francis, I don't care if it's Butler, there's a lot of crap that goes on that comes through our cities. Whether you want to believe it or not, there's always, some sort of domestics, there's also some kind of drug issues that take up a lot of these guys' times. When it comes to the health department, again, I don't know why we are not consolidated with South Milwaukee and St. Francis and Oak Creek, because they are consolidated. We're the outliers, and I'm not sure why. The good part is a lot of the health department is funded by grant money, which kind of saved a lot for us, but now all those grants have been cut, so now our health department staffing is below where it probably should be as well. So these are all these things we're trying to work through and kind of get us back on track.
So Ken, since we're talking about the police department and crime rates in Cudahy, and a lot of the Cudahy residents or residents anywhere may not understand how much time and effort is spent dealing with criminals, not just from Cudahy, but coming through. And one of the things that floored me was when the former mayor was trying to outsource dispatch. You said that Oak Creek was not able to take your dispatchers on at this time, so the former mayor had tried to go with Bayside on the north side of the county with the North Shore Dispatch. And one of the things that was said was that it might not be a proper fit for Cudahy because the Cudahy Police Department was actually busier than the Glendale Police Department. And again, not a lot of the crimes that are committed by Cudahy residents. They're committed by people from outside the area. Let's talk about the challenges with the police department and budgeting for police and dispatch when it comes to dealing with the crime rates in Cudahy.
Yeah, so I'll touch on the dispatch thing first. So the former mayor he kind of dropped in our laps when I was on council, and I was a little perplexed that I thought he would have asked me my opinion on that, considering that working for the North Shore, that Bayside Communications was our dispatch center. Problem is one, the dispatch center itself is over 20 miles away, and two, yes, what you stated was factual. The Cudahy cops are busier than Glendale, but they'd have to take a back seat or share a channel with the other 7 agencies up in North Shore, which is crazy. Not to mention the fact a lot of our streets have the same name, and Bayside did not staff appropriately, even when I was there. And to dates, they still don't staff appropriately to have enough dispatchers to cover all that. So it wasn't a good fit, and the former mayor was not very candid with us when it came to Oak Creek. When I became mayor, I met with Oak Creek, met with the mayor, met with the police chief, and they flat out said that they never told the city of Cudahy no. They were in dealings with South Milwaukee at the time, and they wanted to finish up with South Milwaukee before they looked at taking on another agency. In my opinion, Oak Creek, it's a better fit. It's an easier sell to our constituents. It just makes sense. St. Francis, Oak Creek, us, South Mill, we all kind of run together anyway, along with Milwaukee, like we all did. They're all going to the same call. So why would you have a dispatch center 20 miles away to dispatch guys that are being dispatched by the Oak Creek dispatch center to the same call? It seems kind of silly and just was not a good fit. Not to mention the fact there really was not a cost savings to us. It was more of a one-sided with Bayside. They were going to get a kickback from the feds because of the PSAP designation, which is the having one dispatch center to do everything. And to date, they have yet to grab an agency to sign on with them. So you can say what you want, but there's obviously issues there that no one's signing on with them. So I'll just leave it at that. When it comes to the police department, yeah, we're down quite a few cops. We're getting somewhere on injury. We're getting those guys back. We got one in academy that's coming back soon, but I mean, our staffing fully is 32 officers, sworn officers, but we have a detective bureau and such. And yeah, there's a lot going on. And I recently, I knew, but I didn't know, some of our detectives are loaned out to the FBI task force to do search warrants and do drug raids all over the county. And it's reciprocal. If there's something going on in St. Francis or Milwaukee, some of our guys could be pulled by the feds, or if there's something here in Cudahy, other officers from other agencies are pulled to help out with that as well. Which it all sounds great, but again, it's taking away from cities, issues going on here in the city, because I just don't have enough officers. I wish I did. Yeah, I mean, and our operating budget, I mean, the police chief, his overtime budget is blown. So because again, we guys are on family medical leave because their wives had babies or they're out injured, and I don't have enough cops to cover all that. So we're kind of, again, it's just, and I think there's a lot of cities are that way, and that's why we're all in the same boat with taxes and tax levies. If the state would just keep their fingers out of our business and let us raise taxes accordingly, we're not even having this conversation right now. I've been asked by a lot of constituents, well, if you could raise taxes that would cover everything, how much would our taxes go up? And I said, on average, on a $250,000 home, they will probably go up about $125 to $150 for the year. That's it? That's it. So to a lot of people, you wouldn't even see that, really. You wouldn't even notice that on your taxes. But because we can't do that, we're not allowed to without a referendum, and the state says I can't, then we got to come up with these fees and stuff like a wheel tax, like I said before, to cover all this stuff. Medical equipment on the fire side, maintenance of that equipment, costs go up. They just don't go down.
So, Ken, you talked briefly about the police department's relationships with entities such as the FBI, and you talked about your relationship with the other municipalities and possible consolidation of dispatch with Oak Creek in the future. And there's a number of other entities that you have to deal with as mayor. So the school district, other municipalities, the county, state, and at the federal level. Why don't you talk about those relationships that you have with those other entities?
Yeah, so when I got in as mayor, one of my priorities was I wanted to reach out to St. Francis and South Milwaukee to talk about fire service consolidation, because as I said before, they're all responding to the same call. Our staffing is very similar. Each municipality has one station, and they're strategically located right now to basically, you could have it as one department and cover the area pretty well. So I reached out to those guys, those other mayors, and not that they weren't in favor, they just they were afraid of losing their identity, more so St. Francis than us. And I said, well, you're not losing your identity. I said, I was, being in the fire service for, over 30 years, every call I went to, no one ever asked me what the side of my rig said. They just want you to fix their problem. So they don't care who shows up. And right now, potentially, you're not even responding to your own calls. If you're already out on a call, you're getting us or you're getting Milwaukee more than likely. So what does it matter? I think there's efficiencies that could be made with us being one department when it comes to staffing and overtime and all the rigs we have. We'd streamline all that, reduce all the duplication of rigs. So they're interested in talking more, and it's down here is the same thing like it was in the North Shore. It was talked about for 30 plus years longer, but now it's time. We're all feeling the strain of money, and we can't operate like we have been. When it comes to other agencies, the county's always difficult to deal with. Penny wise, dollar foolish, for instance. So we have 4 parks here. We got Warnemont, we have Sheridan, Cudahy Park, and Pulaski Park. We have an issue with Cudahy Park that I won't go into, but I said to the county, what are you doing with Sheridan Park? Because we got bluff issues, this and that. And I said, why don't you give me the park? We'll maintain it, give it back to us, because back in the 1920s, the park was given to the county by Patrick Cudahy, who was a big employer here in the city of Cudahy, and still is. It's called Smithfield now, but it's also called Patrick Cudahy. Anywho, they're just not doing a good job at maintenance, so we sat down and talked with them, and there's a pool there, and I just talked with the county guy the other day again, and I said, look, we could probably take this on with what we have, but you got to give us the park. And I said, I'm not really sure who does math over there at the county government, but you have a pool that costs you $110,000 a year to operate, and that's including maintenance of the pool, lifeguards, buildings, etc. And you're only taking in $50,000 in revenue. So at what point do you say that makes sense? Because it doesn't. And his response is, what would you do with the pool? I'm like, I would sell it. I'd sell it off to a private entity and let them deal with it. I said, why don't you do the same? I said, you can't maintain the parks. You can't maintain anything. I said, you guys are struggling in every location. We have a Kelly Senior Service Center here that they're closing in the park. It's county land, and they're going to close it, but they're not going to do anything with it. I mean, you could put potential housing in that location with nice views of the lake, and you'll get the rents or the tournament to condos they'll sell. We have a housing shortage here in the county, and that's prime real estate. And I get people like the parks, and that's all well and good. I like the parks too, but things have to change. They're also looking at a dispatch center that nobody really knows what their end game is, because they only want to dispatch fire and EMS. They want to cut the police departments out, which again, I don't know how fiscally responsible that is. And the schools. Holy cow. You cannot believe how people don't understand that the schools and city government are completely separate. We have no say in their money. We have no say in their business. We have no say how they operate. And what people seem to think we do. As example, Cudahy School District back in 2024 of November had 2 referendums on the ballot for a tune of $17 million. It went towards building maintenance for deferred maintenance and wages and benefits and retention for teachers. So they got it. People voted. They voted yes. Well, tax bills were hitting last month. Time to pay the piper. Everyone's taxes went up anywhere from $500 to $1,200, and I was getting phone calls. People are blaming me. Why did you raise our taxes? It wasn't me. You voted for this. No, I didn't. Well, your neighbor did. Go talk to them. Don't talk to me. So the schools, they do these things, and they predicate it on, well, it's for the kids. It's all for the kids. Well, be that as it may, a lot of times they don't do a good job at explaining anything either. And they're not very transparent sometimes. So I met with the superintendent, because now they're trying to do a purchase of the YMCA building here in Cudahy along with South Milwaukee. And given that the fact this referendum just hit, and like I said, people's taxes went up exponentially to where some people can't afford it, and now they want to buy another building. So the optics of that are terrible. And I've tried to explain that to the superintendent, and while she agrees, they're full-fledged, damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead. I mean, it's perplexing to me. And people are just upset. They're angry. And I understand, but they don't understand that cities have no control over these school boards. They have no control over what they do with their money and how it's spent. It's even on your tax bill. It's broken down on your tax bill how much of your money goes to the school systems. Here in Cudahy, 42% of their taxes went to the schools.
So, Ken, you're talking about the challenges as far as running the city of Cudahy. You have a lot of issues that you're dealing with right now, mostly fiscal, and as well as personnel issues that you are short on people in certain spots. Let's talk about a number of the current needs that you are facing as mayor of City of Cudahy.
Well, first and foremost, money. I mean, we need money. We have to run the city. So getting back how we do that through these fees and wheel tax. Now, I am out there every day. I'm soliciting businesses to come here. We have new housing developments that are coming in. And the citizens of the city, they don't understand that, we've had a lot of businesses leave over the years, but now they're coming back because now we're getting spillover from Bayview. And the reason being is people can't afford to live in Bayview anymore, so they're looking to us. Unfortunately, we don't have the housing market to meet the supply and demand, so we have a lot of these apartment developments coming in, one of which is already done. That's called the Scoot, a high-rise on Packard and Layton, which is awesome. And people understand that, you need people to be in your city in order for business to come, and businesses will be here if there's people here to patronize their business. It's reciprocal, and that's what people don't understand. So you can't have one without the other. So that's a significant challenge, and the city is willing to change zoning, amend ordinances to meet the accommodations of the need. Cudahy was a strong blue-collar manufacturing city with having Laddish and Smithfield or Patrick Cudahy, Vilter Copeland, Lucas Millhaupt, and now those businesses are still here, but now we're transitioning that. We're not like that anymore. We're kind of more of like on the lines of at some point, probably long after I'm gone, be on the like a Bayview or even like a Cedarburg, like a destination type place with restaurants and bars and boutique type businesses that our downtown is very walkable, and we can have a lot of events down there that'll bring people to the city, spend their money, and then they can go home. So that's our kind of vision. Future needs, infrastructure upgrades. Again, a lot of deferred maintenance went on around here for years and years and years. I got streetlights on Packard that turn on and off by themselves. Come to find out that because the infrastructure was put in the 40s, and with thawing and freezing and thawing and not being maintained, the wires connect and then they disconnect and then the lights don't work. And then we're like, what the heck? So, but there's a lot that goes into that. So a lot with street repair, curb and gutter, all these things that have been the can's been kicked down the road so far for so long that we're here and we got to start fixing this stuff, or we won't be a city anymore. There's no way. So those are some of the needs we have, is to fix the infrastructure. I need personnel. I got to be able to staff appropriately. I got to pay competitive wages and benefits, or we just won't have anybody who'd want to work here. And being the mayor of this city, I'm not doing it for the money. Trust me, because if I'd have to have my head examined if I was, because it certainly is peanuts. So same thing with the council people. For what their compensation, again, is just it's crazy to me. The amount of time that we spend in meetings and on the phone and everyday day-to-day stuff that we're dealing with, it's a full-time job.
So, Ken, one of the other things that you're working on is there are no grocery stores in Cudahy, and the closest grocery stores are in Milwaukee, about 2 miles away, and in St. Francis, which is another 2 miles away.
Yep.
Why don't you talk about some of your initiatives to try to bring in grocery stores and other retail into Cudahy?
We lost a grocery store here back in 2016, 17, right around that area. We had a Pick and Save here that shut down and moved out. Haven't had a grocery store since. The closest store is in St. Francis. There was a Piggly Wiggly on Rawson and Oak Creek. There was Aldi in South Mill along with a Pick and Save, but they're all closed now. There was Festival Foods on 27th Street. They vacated the premise. When I became mayor, that was one of my things, I'm going to try and get some kind of grocer to come here. And I called everybody. I called Metro Market because I had a contact there, and I understand they're a subsidiary of Pick and Save. I called Aldi. I called Festival Foods. I called Hy-Vee out of Iowa. I called Sendix, and just throwing noodles at the wall to see it would stick. What I learned is that, and what people don't realize is that grocery stores, there's a formula that they use before they come to a location because they have to make money too. It's population, number of rooftops, the median incomes, proximity to other areas, and so forth. And if you don't check all those boxes, they're not coming. So Sendix did call me back. I met with them. They came to City Hall. We showed them the city. We showed them the amount of rooftops, the concentration, the population, the demographics of our population, which our demographics are currently older citizens, like, retirees, but that's transitioning. A lot of those people are, aging out of their homes or, unfortunately they're passing. We have a lot of younger groups moving in, which was attractive because they're not afraid to spend their money. So Sendix came and they did do a market study. They reached out to me in September and said, we've just about done. You're checking all the boxes, except your median incomes are really not what we'd like to see. But with all the new developments you have coming in, we want to see if those get off the ground, and then let's circle back around in January. So in the next week or so, I'll be contacting them and kind of see where we're at, because they took on a huge project up in Whitefish Bay. They knocked down the original Sendix, and they're putting up like a super Sendix, I guess. So I've been trying to do all that. I've reached out to Quick Trip. I've reached out to a couple other type of Quick Trip type places that have similar business models, and I don't get the calls back. Cudahy is really kind of unique. It's always had, not that it had a bad rap, but it's got this reputation that people don't want to spend their money, and it's really not a high affluent area, and so on and so forth, which is too bad, because it's really not the case. And we're trying to change all that, but unfortunately, a lot of citizens on our town halls, our public forums that are not run by the city, because if they were, I'd shut them down. I've never seen a group of people crap on their own city and talk all, who wants to come here, we can't afford that and this and that. Well, I'm sorry, pick and save prices are just as high as everybody else. You got to shop the sales, you got to be smart. I mean, you're not going to go to Sendix and buy toilet paper and paper towels and dish soap. I mean, you go to Target for those types of things. You're going there for the meat, the produce, some of your canned goods, those types of things. So, yeah, so that's a huge challenge, and we're working on it. We do have businesses that are interested in coming. We get calls every day, but it's a slow process, and I wish it was faster, but it's just not how it works. Some of the other things we're working on, we have an area of our city that was a landfill along 794. That was an unsanctioned landfill that the city fathers back in, 30s, 40s. Yeah, go ahead, dump your stuff there. We don't care. The site was closed sometime in the 70s. It's all grassed over. It's got a huge concentration of methane over there. The site is about 40 feet deep. We were working with Sigma Corporation to do all the testing for us, tell us what's actually there. Long story short, we've got a 97.7% concentration of methane in the area. We can't develop the land. It's about 22 acres. We can't do anything with it. So what are we going to do? So I started thinking outside the box and looking at companies that take methane and can convert it into reusable energy. I found a place called Q Energy. They will come, they will siphon the methane and turn it into electricity, along with a solar company that will come and can set up solar panels and obviously use the sunlight in that area and turn it all to electricity, and we can backfeed the grid. So we're not only are we siphoning off the methane and making good use of it, we're also being green, the green initiative and doing, and putting energy back into the grid, which will help the city with its. We'll get credits for that. We'll get carbon unit funds for that. So that'll that's a small revenue stream that we never had before, and it'll be there for ever and a day because it's a landfill. And again, you and I will probably be gone before it's even mitigated.
So, Ken, this has been a really great discussion about your time as mayor in the city of Cudahy. I really wish you a lot of luck in a lot of your initiatives. Do you have any final thoughts for our 13 loyal listeners?
Yeah, if you ever think you want to be the mayor of a city, don't. It's really a lot. And unless, again, if I had, not saying I wouldn't have run because I was asked, but it's a lot. It's a lot more than I thought. I don't mind the work, but there comes a point where you just got to ask yourself, is it really something I want to continue doing into my 60s, which I don't. I would say it's somewhat rewarding when things go my way, and when things are going well, and it's like, wow, I made a difference. That's huge. Just like we were as firefighters, if you made a difference where you brought somebody back from almost being dead or knocking that fire out and saving property, protecting lives, and you had that gratification, it's still that same thing. So, but yeah, if you're gonna jump into this type of role, just be prepared. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of frustration. You can't please everybody. Half of them will love you, half of them are gonna hate you. You're gonna be saying the same thing over and over and over ad nauseum until you're blue in the face and they still won't understand. So just realize that if you understand that and you're willing, then great, good for you. Full steam ahead. You have to be educated in how things actually work, and I like I said before, it's crazy to me that anybody can become an elected official and have no concept of how city government works, and now you're calling the shots. That's crazy to me.
We would like to thank Cudahy Mayor Ken Jankowski for his insight during this interview. For more information on the City of Cudahy, you can visit cudahy-wi.gov. Join us on our next episode when we talk about Burn Awareness Week, which is February 1st through the 7th. WPLG 715, Fireman Kenny is returning to quarters.
They answer the call to be there for you whenever needed. Horwath Family Builders proudly salutes our first responders. Here's another important message on Milwaukee's Hometown Rock.
I'm Assistant Chief Shannon Antoine from the Franklin Fire Department. Wisconsin winters can be brutally cold. When the temperature dips, make sure to keep yourself safe from hypothermia and frostbite. Always be sure to dress in loose-fitting layers that include a jacket, hat, scarf, and gloves when outdoors or when traveling. Wear properly fitted boots and moisture-wicking socks. Change any clothing as soon as it gets wet, and go indoors at the first sign of skin redness or pain. Following these tips can keep you safe from hypothermia and frostbite this winter.
96.5 WKLH and Horwath Family Builders are proud to salute our first responders. Get more information and links to first responders throughout Southeast Wisconsin online now at WKLH.com.